So, thank you so much for coming, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanja. Yeah, we thought we were going to do the whole thing in English because, like, first of all, I'm from Augsburg, so I hate listening to me in my German dialect. The other thing is there are some words which just sound so much better in English, and before we're just going to cover the whole thing in German but do it in English, we said, let's do it in English.
Exactly, like a couple of minutes ago.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Which is fine. Yeah. So we had a pre-conversation, we had an interview. I think you already saw it also in the issue that we just published today. An interview with Kimberly Bradley a couple of months ago already. And we wanted to continue that. So you two were sitting at in Berlin in Slowness, at Slow and the new campus, the new vision that you created a couple of years ago already. So maybe you can explain us what is Slow in the beginning? What is it?
Yeah, I liked your question, which you were addressing to me, that how it describes slowness. I said it's a movement. Yeah, it's not the name of our company. Yeah, we decided to. Funny enough, the website slowness.com was available. Imagine, and this is only 4 years ago. So we were looking for it and said, okay, you know what? It describes maybe not exactly our juristic setup, or it's not a company name, but it's definitely a definition of a movement. Yeah.
We were wondering if you're also arriving slow. So is also your way of commuting also related to that, or where's the name coming from?
Yeah, this goes a little bit back. I think the first time, so this was in my design hotels time, and maybe we get to this a little bit later, yeah. Because like when I started this, it was at the end of the 80s, and it was a very similar situation than it was today. There was dramatical change in society, yeah? Mm-hmm. And I love reading kind of like youth culture, consumer trends, connecting the dots, analyzing future needs. But in this particular time of my life, I went through some personal dramas, took a sabbatical, went to Mexico, started in Tulum, but was supposed to be there for like 3 months and actually got stuck there for 6 years. And I was a very ambitious CEO running this global company, living, defining success by traditional definitions of success, mm-hmm. Until sometimes, many of my friends, they either had it because of a personal loss, because of a disease, a health problem, or whatever. Unfortunately, to most of us in the Western society, these things need to happen to really question what you're doing. Yeah. So this happened to me, and this is when I ended up in Mexico, and that was Tulum before it was Tulum what it is today. Mm-hmm. And it was a place for lots of kind of like spirits and spiritual, ambitious people. It was this also when the Mayas lived there, so it has this kind of like energy that it attracts people for that journeys. Mm-hmm. And this is where my relationship with Slow kind of like started. Yeah. So also the process of starting for 3 months or just staying there for 3 months, but then ending up 6 years, which is also like a way of like, okay, I will take it slow, I will take the time to focus on what I really want to do. And the next thing that you did is starting with Slow. So we started there. How was it for you to? What's the vision behind Slow? Let's start. Maybe we go there. So how I got there was really I thought that after the sabbatical, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go and run my company the way I was running the company. Mm-hmm. Then I realized that in my absence, my team really grew I didn't have to micromanage anything. I started to give more trust just because of my physical distance. And it was really that I was completely 6 months out of the business. And 6 months is a long time in our, I mean, now even longer than it was 14 years ago. But I could see that everybody who took a responsibility in this team, because they liked me and they knew that I need this break, that they were taking responsibility. Yeah. And the responsibility and their creativity increased with me not being there. Yeah. So this was my first big learning. Yeah. So I decided, instead of going back and creating reportings, which I used to have, I said I let it sit and I let them self-organize themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also a big achievement, knowing that the company runs by itself without you being there. It's also in many management tutorials, workshops, masterclass, whatsoever. It's like the thing. You do want to have the company running, or you do want to run the company as if you're not requested to be there anymore. But then it changed because it was running so smoothly, and it changed itself from the inner.
Yeah, so every team player just was able to fulfill his role better in the team, and because it was very, flat, because it was me and the CFO and my assistant, but the other guys, they were kind of like all working hand in hand. And they just kept working hand in hand. It was only the CFO who had the second kind of like signature because he had the power of attorney. But what I learned in this was, and that was really interesting, I started to flip the classical way of how we live in the West, because we go to work and then we have a holiday, and then we go back to work. And I started to live a life almost like a holiday, and then I was going back, diving into work. So I started to travel differently. So I was, in this time, I started to look into North and South American markets. We were not so strong in North America. So I spent a little bit more time there. I really went into every city I traveled, and then I came back. I was not overrun by my normal to-dos, so I had time to digest. And this was really, so I was starting to play with slow and fast life. This is how it actually started, just like talking to friends and so on and so forth. We were looking at the meanings of what an S could be in slow, what an L could be in slow, what an O could be, So we were just playing around all of these kind of like subjects, and it just stayed. So it kind of like manifested in my life.
Yeah.
But I was still CEO of Design Hotels. There was no intention for me to leave the company. So it was just, I identified a certain fatigue, in society, in success, that there was a new definition of luxury, of kind of like time, inner journey. At the same time, there was a dramatical increase in potential burnouts and depressions.
What time are you talking about? Like,
I'm
what
talking
years?
Between 2011 and 2014.
Yeah.
So and it was not something which happened over 6 months. It was something which just was reoccurring and operating from this spiritual place. You also get a higher sensitivity for this. And
this new movement.
Yeah, also talking to people, when people pretend to be lucky or happy, but at the end of the day, sometimes we just pretend to be happy, but we are not happy. Yeah, so we even forgot to define what happiness means, or we are under a cover which makes us look successful and happy, but we are not.
Yeah. Would you say that, since we are now describing a movement, a change in time, back from 2011 to 2013, that we are nowadays, that we were also introduced to, we are living in changing worlds. Everything is changing. We are surrounded by chaos, let's say it that way. Would you say that this kind of movement and this change that we're currently inhabiting is something that is like coming again, or is like a repetition of that, or is it a bigger thing?
Allow me to answer it from a different point of view.
Please do so.
So when I was young, I'm not a hotelier, I didn't study travel or tourism. I was passionate about communication, but my first gig as a early teen, 20, when I started 18, 19, 20, I was starting, it was the beginning of house music, so I started to organize parties. And these parties, they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
I heard that you were like in charge of the biggest parties back in Berlin, throughout the world in the end. Studio 54 was also mentioned. I don't know how many rock stars that you already were greeting, how many DJs that you were inviting to good hotels, or recommending those.
So there were two things. One thing is, because of this, I got into hospitality, and I understood that the first contemporary hotels, they had a much bigger impact on the hospitality as an industry than what the industry recognized. The industry did not want to recognize it, but that's maybe we can talk about it. But what I was always passionate in this time was connecting these dots and understanding these little trends. So when I was like 16, I subscribed to, this was all no internet, by the way, for some of you who don't remember these times in life. We had funny machines at night where we had to write little on black on black screens, which were called telex. So and they were real telephones. And I subscribed to magazines. I had Face, I had ID, I had the Wiener, I had Tempo. I even had a Japanese magazine, which I couldn't read, but it was fun looking at the images. So I was fascinated by all of these things. And through this and my passion for socio-demographic behavioral changes, I stumbled across a very wise man, and he was telling me about Nikolai Kondratiev. So Nikolai Kondratiev was a Russian scientist who died he died around 100 years ago. And he was the scientist who understood the long economical cycles. And they all got initiated by a major innovation. So Kondratiev was already predicting the information age before anybody ever invented a computer. And and he was describing what's going to happen after the innovation age. And this is the age where I found myself in my time in Tulum, where I was making more and more connections about Kondratiev's prediction, because he was saying that after the information age is the age of psychosocial healthcare.
Okay.
Psychosoziale Gesundheit. Exactly. So through globalization, through the speed of information, our systems can't deal with that.
So we're shutting down.
So the result is depression and so on. So everything what we know. So I think how you opened this conference was very, both of you, was very articulate and was really on the point. There were all top important things in it. But this is the movement, which we are in now, and of course, we all have a choice. But, I adore Steve Jobs, but what he should have done, he did it with his kids, but he didn't do it with us as consumers. He should have told everybody how to use the iPhone. So this was in Tulum then 10 years ago when I realized no, this is, the 80s were the 80s, and they were, it was fun, and
different time, different era,
it was a
different
different time,
Yeah.
whereas it was logic to me that after this years of Völlerei, yeah, there needed to be something else. We all seek for this. Yeah. So, and when you have these one-to-one conversations with your families, with your friends, then you will see a lot of nodding heads, because it meets all of us every single day.
Yeah.
And that's why we said, so what we're gonna do is, I didn't want to change industry. Yeah. So,
well, you also can't in a certain way. You just can't change from one point, and you decided to go to Berlin to start there, the new project, the new. Maybe we go into an example, like maybe let's talk about the campus that you were going to open in September, as I remember.
So next year.
Next year, yes.
We opened part of it last year.
Yeah.
And the full campus is going to be open next year. This initiation for this idea of building a campus in Berlin started out of this. Yeah. So 2014, we got invited to participate in a beautiful land on the river in Berlin, in not such a nice neighborhood. Yeah, it's beautiful because it's right accessible in nature, and it's only 20 minutes from Alexanderplatz and kind of like 30 minutes to the new airport. So it's but it was not, it was just not nice people in this neighborhood. Yeah. So we took the risk. We co-invested in it. And we were thinking that this could be an amazing inner city retreat. I don't want to call it resort, but retreat. And then we were saying, okay, what would that retreat need to encompass, or what should be in this retreat? And then we were taking everything what we learned on the 30 years of design hotels, plus these learnings about, new work styles. Yeah.
Everything that happened with design hotels, with this, with selling, all that is comprehended. And also, all the points that you were connecting throughout your journey were like combined in this new venture.
Are the inspiration for what we're doing there. So, one big thing which I learned, I mean, when you run a company from remote, with current, technology and devices is not a problem. But what you cannot run from remotely is culture. So for culture, you need to be in a space, you need to be with people, yeah. So and I must say that what became what was the exemption before COVID became the norm after COVID. But I was living this life kind of like already 10 years before COVID, yeah. So I understood what technology can do, but I understood how disciplined you need to be to work from home.
True.
And I understood how impossible it is to create company culture if you're not together with your people. Yeah. So, and all of these things which we packaged, and we said, for all of these things, and not only for us as an organization, but for our future idea for the industry, as well as all potential other industries, and how could this come together in a new form.
The new hospitality path.
In a new exactly. Yeah. So, and because I was always, when we did the sale to Starwood, and then Starwood got taken over by Marriott, I was 5 years accompanying this journey. So, from having a single strategic shareholder on a public listed company to getting into an American multinational business, and then being absorbed by the largest hotel company in the world, I had some learnings, you can trust me. So we said, what could hospitality do good to the world if it's not run by an Excel sheet?
Yeah. Perfect.
Not exempting that every sustainable business starts by being self-sufficient. Yeah. So it's not philanthropy. Yeah. So from understanding of the movement to adapting to what hospitality could do in the future, we said, okay, let's start with this one campus, which we then started to develop actually 10 years ago, and it's a long time.
And you can also see it like on these slides
exactly.
behind us.
What you see on the images are just images from the construction, as well as one building which is already open, and we launched it very successfully last year in September. Mm-hmm. So all of these ideas of employee well-being, in combination with how can you build amazing architecture, how is interior design important if you want to create silent versus if you want to create communication. Mm-hmm. So we have 14,000 square meters. There are multiple areas, and there are hotel rooms. There are working lofts. There are offices. There is a longevity center. There's mindfulness space and a movement studio, a gymnasium, because we thought, how amazing would it be if there would be a place where I go to work, but this is where I can do all of the other things at the same time.
Where living is possible.
And on top of that, that's the last chapter in this project, that there will be also serviced apartments.
Yeah. I do have a couple more questions, even more because I see a blinking starting here. I think our time is running up, and it's like very intense. Mm-hmm. So I just want to remind you also to have the opportunity to ask some questions. So if you do have a question, please remember it now or start thinking about it now, mm-hmm. until we are going to go to our close-up. We were in our prior conversations that we had, and I enjoyed a lot, is we also talked about how it is if you're failing, if you're mm-hmm. frustrated, how can you, as such a experienced host, as I mm-hmm. introduced you, as a what would be your takeaways that you would like to share with our guests today?
Fortunate or unfortunate, I think the major takeaway is just don't stop believing in yourself, and that's that easy, Don't think that everything what I'm telling you is so shiny and beautiful, We're at the same time, we started this construction in COVID. Then there was the war, with exploding raw material prices, and the banks are just saying no. Every euro which is more expensive, you need to put in your equity. So, I haven't seen in my career, and I had my first crisis I went through was early '90s, Desert Shield. Mm-hmm. Then there was the Twin Towers, then there was Lehman, then there was COVID, but I have never experienced a continuation of problems as we have them at the moment since I'm working, mm-hmm. since I'm in my professional life. I'm not saying that 100 years ago it has been much worse, but at the moment, I think all of our systems are in a way broken. Mm-hmm. And the question is, how do we going to fix them? And I don't believe we can wait for the policymakers to fix them. I think we just need to take this in our own hands and start.
And take the responsibility.
Take the responsibility, and I think hospitality has totally the chance to be the source and the vehicle for good, mm-hmm. because as you described, it's fully life-centered, it's fully circular, it includes everything. So everybody who goes and thinks about hospitality, not lodging. And I think the industry at the moment, when I did this similar conversation in Lausanne at the university just 2 months ago. And we had a big debate of what's lodging and what's hospitality,
And what is it? How was it defined?
now there came lots of these master students who are working on their master theses, and I have these conversations with them, and there is a conversation which works in commercial terms where everything is hospitality, yeah. But in a philosophical way, I think it doesn't work, because in a philosophical way, it's taking care of people. It's not renting a room. Yeah. And taking care of people is much more than, serving good food and wine and selling a room. So, but what I see is coming back to slowness as a movement, and I think that this is your second meeting here, and there's already almost 200 people. So, and everywhere where I come, I hear the same things. So there is enough people who have this idea that they can change, yeah? That change can happen in the small. You start to grow your own food, you bring it to the table, you have, you have 10 rooms in an agriturismo, you can already have a huge impact, And this is ultimately what we want to do. So we want to build not only one campus, there will be maybe another and another, where we're starting a school for life-centered hospitality. This is not in curriculum, but this is a school based on innovation and inspiration and peer-to-peer exchange, because without the peer-to-peer, it's, you do this by yourself, it's very hard.
And this is also what we were also summarizing prior. So it's about believing in what you do, stick to it, fight for it, even though it's sometimes frustrating, or it takes 10 years or even more. Yeah. And always work for the better. Always try to work better, that it's already there. Do not be satisfied with the 80%. Go for the rest of the 20 and do it better. Not just 100%, even more. Would you agree?
There were two things I would love to add to this. Like, one is, instead of just thinking always to make it bigger, very often, I talk to people and then it's I need to add another 40 rooms. No, you don't. Just it's the easiest, but there is other ways where you can grow your business by just not growing it in size, but growing it in IP. Yeah. Come up with new ideas, Why isn't education on every future hospitality P&L? Yeah. It's a spa today, it's maybe education tomorrow. Yeah. And as it's so life-centered, there's almost no limits to how you can grow your business into different fields, And for this, the exchange, I think, is important. And to your 100%, we were saying, you only win the Paris Open if you're going to 100%. If you're satisfied with 80, you're not even getting there, maybe to the quarterfinals.
Exactly. So thank you very much. Do we have a question? Okay, there's one. 2. Okay, I don't see any more, because otherwise I don't think that I can hand over the mic either way. Okay, shoot, yes.
All right, thank you very much. I totally agree that taking care of people starts with taking care of ourselves. And a part of time, what do you do, or what is your insight, or what do you do in your campus for getting self-connection for the people and nature connection? So have a better relationship to nature. What is your concept in this?
So our claim is to cultivate the arts, to cultivate the crops, to ultimately cultivate your inner gardens. So this is the mantra which we are living with in our team. Yeah, the art is there for creating the exchange, the community, the discourse that can be provocative. You don't need to be of the same opinion. The food should always be the best possible. The crops should be not the cheapest or not the most convenient, but it should be the best. And thanks God, there are lots of people here in the room, which I also know, which think the same way. If you combine the both, then you need to start to work on yourself, and this is morning rituals, this is sleep rituals, this is etc. pp. And this is, by the way, a soft version of a Lanzerhof is going to be the minimum requirement for every future resort. Yeah, it's not the exception. You don't offer it, then maybe you succeed if you have a hotel in Mykonos, because there they go for a party. But but the important thing is, you find and in our school this is a central element, that we will exchange every participant with him or herself, yeah, to come into an inner pace. If you're in peace with yourself, you're a much better leader.
And you say a participant is the guest, or is it the staff?
This is particular for the school, which is a school for hospitality professionals and architects and designers and landscape artists.
But wouldn't you also agree that the vision that you were just describing, the mission that you have, is also lived by every person?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it needs to be lived by everyone. So would
exactly.
that answer your question?
Oh wow! I mean, yes, but like it would. Yeah, I'm neglecting this because for us, it's I in a way I hate to say it, but it's a condition. And as we operate always out of the green, so we have this very urban place, but we are in the middle of the green in the city. Our other project is in 20 minutes south of Lisbon. It's 120 hectares of biodynamic farm and forests and stuff like that. So we're looking for, I live now since 15 years in nature. So, sorry for that. Yes, I think it's essential, to give the access to nature. Yeah.
Okay, one final question.
Hi there. In many ways, the slow movement started here in Italy.
Yes.
Back in 1988 with Carlo Petrini.
It's Carlo, sì.
How it evolved from slow food into slow travel today and slow hospitality. So what you did with your little boutique accommodations in Tulum and La Granja and Ibiza, wouldn't you say, and what you're doing today in Berlin, wouldn't you say that represents the next evolution of what you would call slow hospitality?
Yeah. I mean, it's great that you mentioned that, and thanks to Carlo that he gave it a name, And it reminds me a little bit, and in our very first, Slow is now the company we founded in 2015, so it's already 9 years. But when we started this in the beginning, now Slow is, you see Slow here, Slow there, Slow. There's much more of slowness around already. But then I was putting Carlo next to Steve Jobs. Because when Steve got back to Apple and he designed the iMac with Johnny Ive, it was a little bit when Carlo, stopped the McDonald's. So, I was saying, look what happened with design and Apple in the early 90s, and now think what's going to happen with Slow if you just look into the magazine world, how many magazines are dealing with this subject, yeah? So Slow is just is going to be an essential part of interior design, of architecture, of food, of fashion, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And
isn't that the movement?
Sorry, that's
isn't
a movement.
All of that part of the slow movement?
Yes. Yeah.
Do we have time for a final question? Okay. I do have here one. And do we have time? Well, okay, it's not red anymore, so I guess yes. Please.
Yeah, it's going to be a very quick question. Super interesting, but you're talking a lot about it's a movement, but it's only going to happen if we are going to activate people. So you're talking about caring or care about people. Mm-hmm. So we have an issue with that in the hospitality industry especially, right? We have a big issue in finding people, attracting people. So I guess that's the first job we have to do in order to drive this movement forward. So how do we make the hospitality industry, again, a sexy industry to be part of?
Hit it right there. You couldn't have that question at a better moment, because like you were referring to it, and you were referring to it as well, Thomas, and Tanja asked me this 2 months ago, and I told her we were maybe the first hotel company who were starting online with a website without having a room to sell. Yeah. So we started the website slowly, and we were not even talking about hotels. We were just sharing what really was true to our heart. Yeah. We were talking about utopian ideas. We were talking about how to regenerate soil. We were talking about farming principles. We were talking about all Rudolf Steiner, you know. Today we get 5 to 10 initiative, wie sagt man Bewerbung? You know, Initiativbewerbung. And so we get, every week we get 5 to 10 people who are not even hospitality people. Because I think the great chance what we have, and this was a little bit why Lausanne, the university, invited me. This became one of the most successful most successful business universities in the world, and one of the 3 most successful in hospitality. 9 out of 10 students will not work in hospitality. Can you imagine? 5,000 students on the campus. 4,500 will work for Google, for BMW, for Telecom, for Zara, or for whatever. Because hospitality will be an essential part of every industry going forward, with the extent of the internet. So how do we attract people to come to us? We need to attract people who maybe are not in the industry, but they don't want to be in lodging, but they would love to be in something where they can add a meaning and a purpose. So,
and this is also why you received so many applications, even though there was no room to sell.
And there was not even, we didn't even offer a job.
Yeah. So maybe it's about the vision behind.
So there is an awareness of, you know, of talented people who would like to be in this industry. They don't even know what rooms division is, or this is, or this is. And actually they don't care. They said, you know what, we believe in this. This is how we would love to contribute. This is what we would like to contribute. This is what we would love to do, you know. Obviously, you know, it depends on the means, it depends on the culture, on the age, on where it is, and so on and so forth. It's not a home run. But I believe that if you really have a strong message, and these people, they will figure it out right away if you just talk about it or if you really mean it. Because what we need to be aware of, everything what we will talk about today here will be in 6 months on every major branded hotel website. And the difference is, are you really going to do it?
I think
wow.
It can't get any more inspiring. Thank you so much, Claus. Thank you so much, Tanja. And one more. Thanks, guys.